Hello everyone, welcome back to Root Double. Here we are exploring the other areas of the complex, trying to find survivors and AD and Yuri. We've come across a fire, and there was a fire extinguisher here, and the fire is going towards the fire extinguisher, which is not good. Watasi felt shivers run down his spine for some reason when he saw that. What is it? He heard footsteps at the same time. Kazami had returned. Watasi starts shouting right then. Kazami froze where she stood. Warning alarms ringing in Watasi's head. Watasi lunged for Kazami as he shouted that, and right after he dove out of the stairwell with her, there was a brilliant flash behind him. Chapter 5. 5 hours until lockdown is lifted. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Watasi forced himself to stay conscious and then opened his eyes. Everything around him was engulfed in thick dust. What the hell just happened? It seemed that a small fire had ignited something, causing an explosion. But as to what that something was, don't tell me. Watasi then heard a voice under him. It was Kazami. She was lying on the floor, shielded by Watasi. Are you okay? Don't speak. Kazami looked at Watasi with trembling eyes, and then her face warped in agony. Uh-oh. Does she have any internal injuries? Oh no. Watasi looked down to see a scrap of iron about 15 centimeters long impaling Kazami's left calf. As he stared at it, he saw blood ooze out of the wound and drip onto the floor. Oh man, that's not good. The voice came from the stairwell at that moment. No, we're not. Yukito was unharmed, that's good. Watasi then ran over to the stairwell. The explosion has completely destroyed the staircase. Watasi looked until Yukito gazing down at him from the open doorway to B1. Well, not so good. Alright. Watasi took out his Procreon and tossed it up the stairs. Watasi finished up his talk with Yuka and hurried back over to Kazami. Oh, I hope she makes it. Kazami was trying to get up on her feet by herself, but all it did was make her impaled leg hurt even worse. Her face just warped with agony more and more. Exactly. You are not okay. You can barely walk. Watasi said that and squat down, his back facing Kazami. Kazami put her weight on Watasi's back. Watasi hurried over to a nearby room, feeling the softness and weight of her body leaning against him. The pair entered the closest room, the surveillance room. Watasi laid Kazami down on the floor. This was no time to be hesitating. Watasi rolled up Kazami's pants and grimaced instinctively. Kazami's pale leg was drenched in blood. Her wound wasn't that deep, but it was fairly wide. Can I really treat this with Sharon? Impossible. Even if it were to apply the ointment to her, it would just continue bleeding in this state. What? Aww. Kazami grabbed Watasi's sleeve and spoke.
動脈は無事のようですから、ここで十分治療できます。
だが、これは縫わなければ。
縫うのには時間と技術がいります。ですから、これを。
Kazami then took something out of her breast pocket.
医療用のホチキスです。これで傷を塞いでください。
When did you have this?
しかし、
早く血が流れてしまいます。
It's gonna hurt. Watasi resolved himself and took the stapler. He then pressed it against Kazami's
お願い
wound.
します。
行くぞ。
Watasi then pressed the stapler. Kazami's face twisted in pain.
大丈夫か?
Kazami nodded as she kept her eyes shut. Watasi hardened his heart and pressed the stapler once again. 5 staples were enough to seal the wound. Watasi then used about half the Shirin tube on the wound without worrying about how much he was using. Soon enough, the bleeding stopped completely.
よし、終わったぞ。
Good. You still need to take it easy, though. Kazami's breathing was pained.
ありがとうございます。
痛むか?
多少は。しかし、許容範囲内です。
そうか。よかった。
Kazami suddenly smiled when Watasi said that.
なんだか
Aww.
懐かしい感じです。
Aw, okay.
え?
Nostalgic.
いえ、シリウスに入隊したばかりの頃を思い出したんです。よくこうして怪我をして隊長に叱られてましたから。新人の頃はお前は危なっかしくて見てられんという。へ
え、俺からするとなんだか意外な気がするけどな。立花にそういう時代があったなんて。
When she heard Watasi talk about himself like he was someone else, Kazami frowned.
隊長、本当に覚えてないんですか？例えば、私との記憶はどうですか？何か思い出せることはありませんか？
The look in her eyes was almost pleading, but Watasi couldn't lie.
すまん。本当に何も思い出せないんだ。
そうですか。
Kazami then grew quiet. Watasi suddenly felt that he had to say something to Kazami, but she soon smiled at him and spoke.
記憶喪失になる前の隊長は普段とても厳しかったですが、こうして私が怪我した時などはいろいろとお気遣いをくださいました。
そうなのか。
ええ、そのことを思い出して恥ずかしながらちょっと嬉しくなってしまったのです。
Aww. Kazami's honesty left Watasi feeling something akin to embarrassment.
お前が望むならずっと付き添っていてやるが。
いえ、嬉しいご提案ですが、今はそれが許されない状況です。
そうだな。じゃあそろそろ捜索を再開するか。
ええ、私も。
無理するな。ここでしばらく休んでいるんだ。
Just rest, please. We don't need you hurting yourself more.
ですが。
いや、ダメだ。今のお前は危なっかしくて見ていられないからな。
Watasi borrowed his past self's words to get his point across. They appeared to have been enough to reach her.
わかりました。隊長の言う通りにします。
回復したら脳科学実験室に戻れ。そこでみんなと待ち合わせしよう。それまでは壊れてない監視カメラの映像でも見て、要救助者がいないか確認しててくれ。
はい、お任せください。
Watasi took Kazami's Prokion and headed for the door. However, Kazami then called out to him in a low
隊
voice.
長、
どうした?
Kazami paused for a few moments after Watasi turned around, and then continued.
いえ、気をつけてくださいね。
You got it. Watasi gave an obedient nod and left the surveillance room. Watasi headed for a stairwell first after he parted with Kazami. His goal was to find what caused that explosion earlier. However, there is nothing here. He searched the stairwell as much as he could, but there didn't appear to be anything explosive in there. The fire extinguisher had sent shivers down his spine, and when he'd seen it earlier for some reason, so he checked it out. But it had already been smashed into pieces, none of which held any clues. Besides, why would a fire cause an extinguisher to blow up anyway? Maybe there was a gas leak or something. But without his knowledge of fire investigations, Watasi didn't know any more than that. It's bugging me, but I don't have time for this. He decided to give up for the time being and continue searching elsewhere. Area 2 Inner Ring B2. Watasi immediately began a search of the block. Only Kazami and Jun had searched the place the first time through. This was also where their makeshift base was set up. It had been ages since anyone had last checked the area out. There's also enough room to believe that the survivors are constantly on the move. Watasi quickly carried out his search with those thoughts in mind. But a nameplate labeling one of the rooms caught Watasi's eye. Reference room. A room he'd never visited before. Could there be a hint about escape route in here? Yukita had warned him not to go poking his nose in too deeply, but this wasn't the kind of situation that allowed him to heed that warning. Watasi headed into the room with that thought in mind. Hopefully we can find something. It was a small room about 5 meters in width. The entire space was almost completely filled with the still bookshelf upon still bookshelf. There was a switch attached to the shelf, meaning it was most likely a movable type of bookcase. Yuri's not here, huh? Once he confirmed that, Watasi's eyes turned to the bookshelf. A crammed line of books and essays were sitting there. An introduction to the informational field theory, author Miyako Tanakawa. Elementary particles, information and consciousness, author Miyako Tanakawa. ESP synchronization hypothesis, author Antoine Courbet. Translator Miyako Tanakawa. Cerebrum, labyrinth of physiology, author Ryoken Kashiwagi. Unbinding from pseudoscience, the future and prospects of parapsychology, author Koki Sumida. Before Crime, After Days, author Chikaze Sonomura. Ooh. Particles, the Mind and Brain, author Shuya Iriguchi. Watasi looked at all of their titles. I don't get them. Watasi had no knowledge of science in his current state, so he hadn't the slightest clue of what they contained. Now that he thought about it, the two main themes of research at the facility were nuclear power and biology. Either way, all he knew was that there was a lot of biology-related books in there, but there was a familiar name amongst all the authors listed, Miyako Tanakawa. If his memory served him right, that was the name of Natsuhiko Tanakawa's mother. And when he saw those books, a strange anxiety welled up in Watasi's chest. Huh? Watasi was puzzled. Why would looking at books make him anxious? I know this isn't the time to be doing this, but Watasi couldn't go against his feelings, so he took one of the books and flipped through it. An introduction to the informational field theory. Forward. In modern physics, all phenomena that shape the natural world can be explained with 4 fundamental forces, but there are phenomena such as the accelerating universe and so on that cannot be explained by those 4 fundamental forces alone. It has become clear from recent high-precision observation that the rate at which the universe expands accelerates with time. It is from that survey that the theory of an unknown energy known as dark energy, repulsive gravity, was born. But if dark energy supposedly does exist, then what is it? Various conjectures have been conceived, but they are all merely speculation. Thus, I continued to look into that force from the perspective of an elementary particle physicist and formulated a hypothesis. Could it be information? If a 5th fundamental force does indeed exist, there is a high possibility that it is in fact information. I used a numerical formula to express the equivalence of informational volume and energy. And then after deriving its value, I discovered that said value completely matched up with the rate of universal expansion. In other words, dark energy has been added. Watasi had no clue what he was reading. 5th fundamental force, information, dark energy, what the hell's all that? He still had no clue why he'd felt such intense anxiety from this book. Was it just my imagination, maybe? Watasi wondered as he flipped through the pages and kept reading. Will we find any more information in these bookshelves? Find out next time on Route Double, Before Crime, After Days. Maybe we'll read that one.